Welcome to the third option here on BTV Cable 8. Wow.
Well, that was awful.
Thanks for joining us on the third option. I'm sure you're curious as to why we're on your television.
Yeah. Why us?
Well, you may not be aware of this, but there are literally thousands of intelligent young minds who do not have the chance to get the exposure they really deserve.
Our purpose is to provide these people with a 30-minute interview in which they can voice their views and opinions on subjects in which they've gained a substantial amount of knowledge over the course of their lives.
And here's an example of how this interview process works.
So, Graham.
Chris.
Tell me, what does the third option mean?
Third option. Well, that goes way back to a conversation I had with you a couple of years ago. We were sitting in a dorm room, philosophizing, talking about the meaning of life, trying to figure, the whole thing out. And really, we came to a conclusion that day that things don't always operate in yes and no, right or wrong, left and right. There's always a third option. There's always another way.
Well, that's super.
I know. Well, that's how our interviews will work. Our guest for this week is Brian Daly, a talented artist out of Boston. We're heading over to the gallery now to meet Brian, so we'll see you there.
Welcome to the Wallace L. Anderson Art Gallery.
And we're here with Brian Daly. And Brian, let's just get started asking you a couple of good questions just so we get a good idea of who you are and really where your career has taken you to this point. Tell us what so far in your life you have accomplished as an artist.
Well, so far in my life as an artist, I've grown to learn myself, which is the most important thing, because I believe that you can't produce any sort of valuable art unless it means something. There can be millions of artists saying, I feel like painting this today, or I think I'm going to make some art today. And I don't think that works. If there's some sort of impression put into it, some sort of genuine emotion that comes from knowledge about yourself, not just through some vaguest feeling of nothingness. You know what I mean? Yes. No, I think for a young starting artist, I think I'm doing very well for myself. I've done things like switch schools, which for a lot of people is very hard to do, and I've done it with no problem whatsoever. I've adjusted to a new environment. I've also been able to, in that same time frame between switching schools, produce art. I haven't been caught in a rut. This is very important. I've been through the process discovering myself further, which for any starting artist is very important. With my career so far, I've done things like painted murals. I work for an artist as an assistant. I'm not just sitting on my butt saying, I think I'm going to be an artist when I grow up. I'm actually doing something about it.
Give the man $1.
Give me 2.
When did you first discover art as a means of expression?
I was young when I first started realizing the value of art as expression, I didn't know it as that at the time. It was just that, for me, it felt good to draw. I didn't have very many friends when I was a little kid where I lived. You know, I went to school out of town, so I didn't know the local kids. And, you know, so I couldn't get back and forth to the other towns and hang out with the other kids. So I hung out by myself a lot. If I wasn't drawing all the time in my room, I was building things. Building with, like, Legos and blocks and always creating really in-depth stories and situations for all the characters that were involved. And eventually, I started doing that with my drawings. And that's just gone all kinds of crazy places now.
Escape from the yellow Lego bricks.
Pretty much so, yeah.
Okay, Brian, and another interesting and somewhat unusual question. Who influences Brian, but also on the same level, who does Brian hope to influence?
There are so many people that influence me as an artist. They're not necessarily all visual artists. Some great authors, people like Ernest Hemingway have influenced me. Like I said in your previous question about how do I define art as a lasting impression, something that I feel. The work of Ernest Hemingway always leaves me with an impression. It's something that I can't shake. It's something that I can relate to. It's something that I feel, you know, and that's something that I try to put out in my art, a lasting feeling.
Yeah.
Painters like Pablo Picasso and Vincent van Gogh, my favorites, their work is so raw, but it's not empty. You know what I mean? There's something there that lasts with you when you leave it. Not all painters do that for me. People that I hope to influence, I'd like really to influence the younger generations. There's a lot of talent out there, and unless they learn to work with that talent, it goes wasted. If you're not put into a productive environment, it's not going to do anything.
Brian, in your opinion, is there any such thing as bad art? Let me just rephrase that.
Yeah.
Let me just put the question to you again. Is there any such thing in your opinion as bad art?
Yes. I think there is art that is poorly done. Maybe you want to call it tacky, or commonly the word used is kitsch.
Velvet Elvis.
Velvet Elvis, dogs playing poker, things like that.
That would be German for bad art, probably.
I would imagine so. I don't really know where it comes from. I'm just familiar with the usage of the word as referring to something that isn't widely accepted as valuable art.
Let's move on to another question, Brian. What? And I understand this is kind of an odd question, but what, if somebody really asked you, would be your definition of art?
My definition of art, that's a very good question. I think everyone should have their own definition of art. For me, art is something which creates an impression. I know something is good art when I can feel it when I'm looking at it. It doesn't have to be visual art. It can be a music piece, or it could be even something like a car that was designed well. When you are around this object, or you're using this object, or maybe you're subject to it, you left with an impression that you can't shake right away. Some paintings almost make me cry. Some pieces of music almost make you cry. To me, that's a good definition of art.
Here's the tough question. In your opinion, is art truth?
No. I'm going to say no. I'm going to take the the borrowed Picasso stance that I'm sure lots of pompous artists take, that art is a lie a lot of the time. It's something, a lot of the time, art is something that you use to cover something in yourself. That way, maybe it's cosmetic. It's not really a lie, but it's not really the truth. Gray matter, you know, it's very personal to the artist if his work is truth or a lie. Maybe it goes both ways. That's not really something that I've given a whole lot of thought to. It really isn't.
Brian, are you talented? And by that I mean, what do you think of yourself? Really, are you your own worst critic?
I'm not gonna lie. I think I'm talented.
That's good. Hey, that's great.
Yeah.
I mean, you are.
No, but in all honesty, and just being serious for a minute, like, I've done a lot in my life, and I've watched my work develop, and sometimes I'm very happy with my work.
Mm-hmm.
Some days I am my favorite artist. You know what I mean? I love myself. I'm not gonna lie to you.
It's so wonderful.
I am wonderful. And other days I hate myself.
Yeah.
I hate my work. I think it's all crap. It's not worth a damn thing. Maybe that's natural. I bet it is. You know what I mean?
Like stuff you've already painted, you look at it one
Stuff
day and
I-
say it's great, and the next day you look at it and say, I can't
That's
believe I
nothing.
made that.
That's nothing. Anyone can do that. Any student could do that.
Yeah.
You know?
So you are critical of yourself, and yet you're also very supportive of yourself.
Exactly. Yeah.
Along the same lines as that last question, if you were to create a work that you would consider a masterpiece, what would have to be present in it?
I would have to be fairly secure with a piece. I would have to think that it was a masterpiece. Did I put enough time into it? Did I have to stop during the painting for a week because I couldn't stand it and walk away from it? And then build up enough energy, enough commitment to come back to it and be willing to fight like whatever problem was there, to find the pieces that weren't working in the composition. Maybe the colors aren't right. Could I come back and face it and do it again? A masterpiece, for me to call it a masterpiece, I think I'd have to almost love the piece. Yeah.
Brian, what is it that you hide in your work? And by that, really what I mean is, what do you hope other people will discover when they see or hear your work?
Okay. Honestly, there are a lot of things which I hide in my paintings. They're not all things which I want everyone to see.
Mm-hmm.
I hide things like insecurity in my work. I'm sure some people picked it up. I'm sure some people don't. I also hide, and I'm not so sure if it's hidden, is the events of my life. That's really what most of the work is about. They're my interpretations of the events of my life. I'm not comfortable with all of these events, and sometimes the best way for me to deal with it is to put it down on canvas.
Hallelujah! Right on! Right on! Amen, brother! Amen, brother!
Do you incorporate any psychology or philosophy into your art?
Sure. I think a great deal of something, anything that you produce. Okay, I'll go so far as to say that anything that you produce that comes from inside of you has something to do with your own psychology. How can it not?
Okay, but do you intentionally?
Not all the time, no. I think a small percentage of my work is psychological, maybe. You have to go into it to get something out of it. I do that more through devices like metaphor, though, than anything deep and astounding. It's related more towards someone realistically who isn't school educated in psychology to be able to interpret it. Philosophy, not as of yet, no, not so much. I do have some of my own philosophies, maybe political philosophies, that come through in some of my work, more so in my drawing than in my painting, and maybe even in my music. Yeah.
I disagree.
Yeah, I think you're a bull-faced liar. I didn't want to do the show with this kid.
Fine.
I think we should take you out in the back and shoot you.
Yeah. Brian, if you were to showcase a major collection of your work, what would be the ideal situation? And by that I mean place and time, and I don't necessarily mean time of day, but I mean in history. If you could literally showcase your work anywhere, anytime, where would it be?
It would have to be someplace outside of a gallery. I don't think art, if it's worth anything, has to be shown in a little room with 100 other pieces of art. Maybe that doesn't do it. Maybe that doesn't allow you to concentrate on an artist's work as a whole. You know, if art's related to the artist. Maybe the ideal place for me to show my work would be in my ideal home, in my ideal studio, in my ideal gallery, custom built by me. If it was going to be an ideal time, why not now? What's wrong with now? I see no reason to bring myself back 100 years if my art is related to my life, which is related to the 20th century, the late 20th century.
Okay. What is the most unusual substance that you've used in a work of art?
First of all, it wasn't really my work of art.
Okay.
I was involved in a sculptor's design for an installation piece. So were a bunch of other students. It was very open. She allowed us to all come in. What she wanted us to use was decaying fruit, steel wool, Vaseline, and epoxy enamel paints. And wax.
Sounds like what I had for lunch.
It was probably a little better than what you had for lunch. Yeah. That's probably as far out as I'm going.
Rotten fruit.
Rotten fruit with fruit flies. Little crawly things.
Wow.
Brian, what do you see in the art world today?
The art world isn't necessarily something that I'm very familiar with yet. I'm still in school. I'm still dealing with students. I'm still learning. I'm not completely in the art world.
Of course.
The little bit that I know about the art world, the little bit that I've seen through like museums and textbooks and galleries and shows, magazines, the art world's constantly changing. It's always something new. That's one of the great things about art. You know, there's always something new coming up. It breaks through its stagnant periods all the time. It evolves. I'm seeing things in the art world right now that I don't necessarily think are very exciting. There's a lot of turning back to old styles. Maybe people don't feel like there's someplace else to go, someplace new to take it. Or have all the styles been used up?
Wub, 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 wub.
Here's a loaded question for you. What do you think of Art Nouveau? $1 million toilets, etc.
I think that stuff's cool. Okay, $1 million toilet. That artist was able to take something and say, this is a statement about society, or this is a statement about how I feel about the art world, and get paid $1 million for it.
I'm going to have to interrupt you, Brian. I don't, and I'm sure some of our guests don't, our viewers, should I say, don't know what you mean by $1 million toilet.
Okay, I can't...
Well, let me rephrase it then.
Yeah. I know I'm sure we all know what you mean by Art Nouveau, but the $1 million toilet thing, I'm a little thrown for a loop here.
You don't know the $1 million?
No.
It's the art exhibit with where they were auctioning off toilets for $1 million.
And they were just toilets?
They were basically
it was
non-functional ceramic sculptures of toilets. They looked just like toilets.
But they weren't like, you know, Henry V's crapper or something.
No, they were urinals
Oh my God.
and toilets.
It started, there was an artist who used a urinal, called it a piece of art, sold it, put it in a gallery, whatever. Look at the metaphor. You just bought something that you're going to pee into. Okay? Or
For $1 million.
For $1 million.
For $1 million.
Okay. He was able to get away with that. Or maybe that wasn't his intention, but that's what he got paid for doing that. Why not? Really. I mean, if you can do it, why not?
If sports stars can get paid
Yeah, so can
$1 million
artists. Why not?
salaries, so should artists.
That type of art, more pop art or modernist art, I think there's a lot of stuff going on there that I don't necessarily agree with. Series of compositions of paintings that are just a slash of color, maybe a piece of black thrown on a yellow canvas. I may not understand or agree with the artist's statement, but for some reason it's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars just because of the artist's name. I don't know if I see any value in that.
It's almost like we're bringing art down to the level of a pair of jeans just because the jeans have the name on it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Name brand.
And
Name brand.
a name brand. And you know, sometimes I really find that is really unfortunate, especially when it comes to art, where art is such a particular thing, you know, right down to the artist. And you get into these name brands. I mean, granted, I suppose fashion's the same way, but still, I mean, my pair of jeans and your pair of jeans are different, but
didn't Pablo Picasso essentially do the same thing when he was in his signature signing phase, where he would sign it and sign, I believe it was napkins, and sell them for $25,000?
People bought it.
That's true.
Pablo Picasso was a very intelligent man. He understood the way the art world worked. He had been exposed to it since he was very little. He sold paintings, and eventually he got a name for himself, and was able to sell paintings for ridiculous amounts of money because he had built that name for himself. It's all about your name. It really is.
Brian, what is your best or favorite medium, and why?
I think my best medium, it would have to be something very simple. Drawing. Pen and ink drawing, pencil drawing. I love it. I can do it anywhere, on the bus, in the car, sitting around somewhere, doing
Hanging
nothing.
upside down from a lamppost,
Hanging upside down from a lamppost, hanging upside down from a tree.
on the back of an elephant,
Why not?
sitting on a cloud. Okay, continue.
It's something that I've been doing for the longest. I've been drawing ever since I can remember. It's always been something very expressive for me. Painting is something newer for me. I've only been painting seriously for 6 years maybe, 6, 7 years. I've been drawing since I can remember.
Really?
One of the first presents someone ever gave to me was one of my aunts, and it was a marker set. And ever since then, I've just been drawing on everything, writing on everything I can get my hands on.
Do you still have any of the markers?
Yeah, I do.
Do you really?
Yeah, I have a green one.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Do you use any reoccurring themes or major symbols in your art?
Actually, yeah. If you look through my work, I think you'd find a lot of recurring symbols. Something like a chair There are a lot of chairs in my work, symbolizing waiting around, waiting for something. There's a lot of alcohol in my work, symbolizing my concern about the possible development of alcohol problems. That type of thing runs in my family. It's a big concern of mine. I feel that by staying aware of it, maybe I can keep track of these things. So, I paint my feelings and reflect on it all the time. There are always women in my work. Sometimes they're naked, sometimes they're not. There are a lot of tables in my work. The comfort of being at home around the table, or the depression that you sometimes feel, or I feel, sitting alone at a table eating a meal by yourself. These are feelings that I put through symbol into my work. Also, as a symbol of the times, graffiti has been a big part of my work. It's a symbol of very modern art. It's something unique to the past 20 years. It's something that I choose to learn about and express myself through.
Thanks for joining us today at the Wallace L. Anderson Gallery. We're going to head back to the Third Option Studios and finish the show up. But let's just say right now to Brian, thanks a lot.
Hey,
Thanks a lot.
It's been great, guys.
Let's just have a little quiet chat. We hope that you have enjoyed this week's conversation. Remember that art is a perception of reality and not a commodity. We'd like to thank Brian for joining us.
And thank you for watching. Please join us again for another relevant discussion with a promising young mind.
You have just witnessed The Third Option. Thank you, and we'll see you again soon.